Hey there, I'm Tim Williams. Welcome to another video in the series I call Revealing Your Vision, focused on various aspects of post-processing your images. Please visit our club website at notchabovephoto.com or join us at one of our meetings in the beautiful North Country of New Hampshire's White Mountains. In this episode of Revealing Your Vision, I'm going to show you a function called soft proofing in Adobe Lightroom Classic, Photoshop CC, and ON1 Photo RAW. I'll explain what it does, how it works, and when you need to use it. Be sure to check out the links below the video description for an outline of the video and a PDF flowchart summarizing the steps for soft proofing in each program. Lightroom and Photoshop have had soft proofing for some time. ON1 introduced the function in Photo RAW 2018.1, so this seemed like a good time to review its purpose and compare the three programs. As you'll see, they differ in their approach and usefulness. I'll tell you right up front that if you're not into printing your photos, you don't need to use soft proofing. But if, like me, you believe making custom prints is a worthwhile endpoint, grab a cup of coffee and get comfortable, because I've got some interesting things to show you. Let's talk first about what soft proofing is and what it can help you accomplish. To do this, we need to touch on the differences between viewing an image on your monitor and printing it on photo paper with an inkjet printer. Your monitor is a transmissive medium, meaning you view the transmitted light composed of the image pixels. Photo paper, on the other hand, is a reflective medium, where what you see is reflected off the paper and there is no light shining through from behind. These differences have important implications. It helps to use a monitor that can display a wide spectrum of colors. Think of this like a box of crayons. The more colors you have, the more accurately you can draw, or with a monitor, display a picture. You need a monitor that can reproduce at least the sRGB gamut of colors. And if you can afford it, a monitor that covers the Adobe RGB gamut, which is larger than sRGB, is preferable. Beyond that, it is critical to calibrate and profile your monitors so that it will accurately reproduce these colors. How to do that is beyond the scope of this video, but suffice it to say there are various colorimeters available from companies like X-Rite and Datacolor. The process is not difficult, but it is necessary to achieve WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get, results when you're printing. There are literally hundreds of different photo papers out there, each with its own characteristics. These include features like the weight of the paper, how white it is, its reflectiveness, for instance gloss, luster, or matte, the surface texture, and what colors the paper can reproduce. By the way, that last feature is also limited by the printer and inks you are using. To adjust for these differences and pass this information along to your printer, paper manufacturers usually provide something called a profile for each paper. To accurately print an image, you need to download these profiles so they can be automatically applied by the software you're using. Sometimes simply double-clicking on a downloaded profile will place it in the correct folder where your computer and software expect to find it. Other times you must manually drag or copy it to the proper folder. In Windows, this folder lives on your boot drive under Windows, System32, Spool, Drivers, Color. On a Mac you will find it in the Library, Color Sync, Profiles folder. Here are some of the profiles I have stored on my computer. Each profile has a name associating it with a particular printer and ink. As you'll see shortly, this is the list you'll select from when it comes to setting up your soft proofing. Okay, now that you have the profiles for the paper and printer you'll be using, let's talk about soft proofing. As you'll learn shortly in this video, soft proofing lets you see what your image will look like when it's printed using a particular paper and printer combination. To accomplish this, the software uses the profile you installed. Why is soft proofing useful? Well, first, all three programs I mentioned earlier have something called a gamut warning as part of this function. Turn it on, as I have just done here, and you'll see, usually as a red or magenta overlay, a warning that displays the colors in your photograph that cannot be accurately reproduced with this paper and printer. Here's how a gamut warning looks in Lightroom with one profile. Look closely and you'll see that the red flowers have now taken on a much brighter reddish-orange overlay, indicating that the original colors of these flowers are outside the gamut of this particular paper and printer combination. The previous profile was for a premium luster paper, one that can reproduce all but the most intense colors accurately. I'll show you how to change profiles shortly, but I just want you to see how the warnings change using the same photo but a different profile, this time a canvas paper, which has more trouble reproducing the intense colors. As you can see here, the gamut warning is much more widespread. This means one of your options is to choose a different paper that gives less of a gamut warning. I'm assuming here you have only one printer. But what if you really want to use one particular paper? Here's where it can get interesting and fun. Basically, the process proceeds like I show in this flowchart, which is available for you in a link below the video description. You view your original edited image as well as the soft-proofed image, ideally side by side. But the three programs I'm going to show you differ in how well they do this. Then with your soft-proofed image as the active image, you make further editing adjustments to it until one of two things happens. Either the gamut warnings gradually get less, or the soft-proofed picture begins to more closely resemble the original. Which of these changes is your goal depends on the soft-proofed image. Sometimes you need to do both, and in a few minutes I'll show you the steps in detail. If the problem seems to be a lack of contrast or deep blacks using this paper, you may want to adjust the dynamic range with the contrast slider or by changing the black and white points. If the problem is with gamut warnings for a particular color, changing the hue or saturation of that color slightly can often reduce or eliminate the warning. The result is a soft-proofed image that, when printed, will more closely match the original on your hopefully calibrated monitor. And that's exactly what you want. It's never going to be perfect, because in the end you're comparing a monitor image to a print image. Let's take a look at soft-proofing in action and see how each program handles it. First up, we'll see how it works in Lightroom. I'm going to select this image from the Lightroom library module and take it into Develop by clicking on Develop up here, because this is where soft-proofing lives in Lightroom. As you can see from the basic panel over here on the right, I have already made some adjustments to the photo. To bring up soft-proofing, I'll simply go down to the lower left-hand side of the toolbar and click on soft-proofing. If you don't see the toolbar, just press the letter T on your keyboard and it'll pop up. Once you turn that on, you will see over on the right panel a soft-proofing section that now appears above the basic panel. The first thing I want to do is click open the drop-down menu where it says Profile. Here you can select the profile for the paper-printer combination you want to use. If you don't see the profile you want, click on Other at the bottom of the drop-down. This will show all of the profiles you have installed, and you can select one. Next, just under Profile, you need to choose a rendering intent. Perceptual keeps the relationship between colors. Relative changes only out of gamut colors. I generally choose relative, but make a test print with both choices to see which works best for you. Make sure Simulate Paper and Ink is turned on. Now you are ready to make a soft proof, so click on Create Proof Copy up here. It says Proof Copy Created. A proof preview opens, and if you have set file names to show on your image, you will see the profile name has now been appended to the file name. If you have the film strip visible at the bottom, you will also notice that Lightroom has created a new soft-proofed image right next to the original. To view a gamut warning, make sure soft proofing is still turned on, then click Shift-S. Or go to the View menu up here at the top, and under soft proofing, click on Destination Gamut Warning. Just to clarify, Monitor Gamut Warning up here under the View menu is not the same thing as Destination Gamut Warning. I'll click on Monitor Gamut Warning, and this will show the out-of-gamut colors on my monitor, which has a wide Adobe RGB gamut, as opposed to the much narrower gamut of the Destination, which is an exhibition canvas paper. With the Destination Gamut Warning visible again, I can make some adjustments in the HSL panel to saturation or hue in an attempt to decrease the warning areas. The easiest way to do this is to open the HSL panel over here and then click on either the Hue or Saturation tab. I'm selecting Hue here, then click on the Targeted Adjustment tool icon, which is right below, and mouse over to the image itself, and then drag up or down over an area with a gamut warning until the warning area decreases or goes away entirely. As I do this, you can see over in the right panel that the red and orange hue has shifted somewhat. Now I'll click on the Saturation tab. The Targeted Adjustment tool is still active, so I'll go back to the image and I'll drag down with that as well, and you can see that the saturation in those areas is decreasing, and so is the gamut warning. Let's hit Shift-S on the keyboard to turn the gamut warning off and look at the colors as they've been changed somewhat. If I'm happy with those colors, then this is probably the only adjustment I need to make to the gamut warning. If I'm unhappy with the colors, the best result might be obtained by actually switching to a different destination paper, where the printer paper combination will have a wider gamut than this particular canvas paper that I've chosen. Correcting a photo's gamut warnings, however, goes only so far. Basically, you're altering just the hue and saturation of certain colors. By the way, this is something today's inkjet printers can do on their own to an extent. But soft-proofed images destined for print also frequently differ from the original in other aspects, like contrast, brightness, and sharpness. Gamut warnings don't help here. Fixing these deficits requires that you be able to view the original or reference image right next to the soft-proofed image. Fortunately, at least in two of these programs we're comparing, I can do just that. First, in Lightroom, I click on the Reference View icon, labeled RA for Reference Active. It's the second icon from the left in the lower toolbar. Or I could simply use the keyboard shortcut Shift-R. Before you do this, make sure that you had the soft-proofed image selected in the film strip. When the reference view comes up, if necessary, drag the original image from the film strip into the left-hand reference pane. It's labeled reference right there. In the right-hand active pane is the photo I'll be working on, and the file name should show the profile I'm using. Now I can make additional edits to the active photo to make it closely resemble the reference photo. Unfortunately, in this side-by-side view in Lightroom, you can no longer see the gamut warnings, so you must do these steps one at a time. Here I'm adjusting contrast by boosting it a bit to around 17 or 19, and exposure is something that I'll drop just a little bit to around 0. After I finish, making sure the soft proof image is still selected, I can take it into Lightroom's print module. I won't go into detail here about printing from Lightroom, except to point out it's important to select the paper and printer in the Page Setup dialog. You must also select the profile you are using in the Color Management panel dialog over here on the right. Under Profile, if I drop this down, I can select the canvas paper profile that I am using. It's important not to select Managed by Printer. I'll drop this down again so that you can see that. If you select Managed by Printer, you'll get some unexpected results. So that pretty well covers soft proofing in Lightroom. Let's move on now to Photoshop. Here's the simplest way to proceed in Photoshop. With the image you want to soft proof, open on your screen, go to the Image menu up at the top, and click on Duplicate to make a reference copy. Then add reference to the file name, as I just did in this dialog box, and then I'll click OK. This duplicate or reference won't be affected by edits you make to the master file. Instead, it serves as a reminder of what you want the softproof version to look like. Then go to the Window menu at the top, go down to Arrange, and mouse over to either Tile All vertically or Tile All horizontally, depending on your images. Now you will have the two images side by side, and with the non-reference photo selected on the left, go to the View menu and mouse over Proof Setup, the first item in the list. Then on the side menu select Custom, and this will open a soft proofing dialog. If necessary, click on the drop-down menu under Device to Simulate. Select the correct profile for the paper-printer combination you will be using. Choose your rendering intent. Here I've chosen Relative Colorimetric. Make sure both black point compensation and Simulate Paper Color are turned on. Preview should also be checked on over here. Name and save this custom proof setup if you wish, and click OK. Next to the reference image on the right, the screen now displays your soft-proofed image on the left, with the profile you have chosen added to the file name. Make sure this photo is still selected and proceed with your edits. You can turn on the gamut warnings from the View menu by going down to Gamut Warning and clicking on that, or you can use the keyboard shortcut Shift-Control-Y. Unlike in Lightroom, here it is possible to have these warnings visible even in a side-by-side view. Your goals, however, are the same as they were in Lightroom. You want to minimize the gamut warnings and otherwise adjust the soft-proofed photo so it more closely resembles the original. The most helpful layers to add are a curves adjustment layer in luminosity blend mode, as you can see here, and a hue saturation layer in color blend mode. Here I've created a curves layer with a slight S-curve to increase the contrast, and a hue saturation adjustment layer where I've adjusted the saturation down a bit to reduce the gamut warning. Save the file when you're done with the soft proofing edits. It will retain a file name that includes the name of the profile. To print, click on Print in the File menu up here. And the printer setup dialog will open. Select your printer and click on Print Settings. Enter the paper you will be using under Media Type. Then under Mode, select Off for no color adjustment. Click OK to close the Print Settings dialog. Back in the Print dialog, under Color Management, where it says Color Handling, drop that down and select Photoshop Manages Colors. Right underneath that, where you find Printer Profile, also drop that down and select the paper that you will be using, which should be the same profile you used when you were soft proofing. And that finishes our demonstration of soft proofing in Photoshop. This brings us finally to ON1 Photo RAW 2018.1. Of the three programs, the soft proofing function in ON1 is the least polished, probably because as I record this video, version 2018.1 has just recently been released. Here I am in the Browse module, where I've selected a photo taken at the Butchart Gardens on Vancouver Island off the coast of British Columbia. I'll take my photo into Develop, since ON1 soft proofing lives in this module and it's where you will do most of your editing. I'll enable soft proofing from the View menu right here, or alternatively I could click on the soft proofing icon in the lower toolbar, and a third way to do it is to use the keyboard shortcut Alt-S. One nice touch: when you enable soft proofing in ON1, the image is automatically given a border in the color of the paper whose profile you are using. You select this profile again using the View menu under Profiles, and here I've selected Ultra Premium Photo Paper Luster. This is also where you can select the rendering intent and turn on the gamut warning. One good way to reduce the gamut warnings is in the color adjustment panel, which I added by clicking on Show More under Overall Settings. Here you can alter the hue and saturation of various colors. With the gamut warning turned on, I'll first show you the amount of warning with the color adjustment panel turned off, and then I'll turn it on and you can see how much I was able to reduce it. In this case, first by choosing the green color range and adjusting the hue upwards and the saturation down. Then I clicked on the yellow color range, and both the hue and saturation are things that I turned down. Again, turning it off and turning the color adjustment back on, you can see that I was able to eliminate a good bit of the gamut warning. If I turn the gamut warning off once more, you can see that I was able to achieve this without an undesirable effect on the greens in the photograph. The best way in ON1 to edit the soft-proofed image side by side with the original is to create a virtual copy, or version as ON1 calls it, from within the Browse module before you start your soft proofing. This is also helpful when correcting gamut warnings. Here I'll right-click on the photo and in the menu click Create Version, which you can now see side by side with the original. Then go to the Develop module and turn on the film strip view by clicking this icon in the lower left. Then hold down the Shift key while you select the virtual copy, then the original from the film strip. It's important to select the virtual copy first, making it super selected with an orange frame. Next, click on the second icon from the left in this grouping, labeled A. If you hover the mouse over this icon, it says Set the Preview Area Compare Mode. Now you'll see the original in the left half of the viewing pane and the virtual copy on the right, with an orange badge that says Preview. If instead it says Original, then simply click once to change it to Preview. Next, enable soft proofing as we discussed earlier, either via the View menu, where you can click on Enable Soft Proofing, using the soft proof icon in the lower left, or with the keyboard shortcut Alt-S, which I'm using here. Both of these images I've noticed come up with the gamut warning showing, but for now I'm going to go to the View menu and turn off gamut warning, although they're still both soft proofed in the profile that I've chosen. From the same View menu, select a profile under the Profiles line here, and I'm going to select Exhibition Canvas Matte. And you can go back to the View menu once more and select Rendering Intent. Here I've selected Relative. And make sure that you have Simulate Paper and Ink turned on as well. In this Preview Area Compare mode, any presets, filters, or adjustments for gamut warnings will affect only the virtual copy on the right, which I'll demonstrate here by turning up the exposure quite a bit, and you'll see that it's the virtual copy that's affected. Unfortunately, at least for now, it's not possible to view the original and soft-proofed version simultaneously. With soft proofing turned on, both images show the effects of the profile you choose, and of course, with soft proofing turned off, neither image reflects this profile. The best you can do is edit the virtual copy while soft proofing is on, then click on the Preview button here to return to the original and try to remember how each compares. Click on the soft proofing icon again to review the profile effects and make any additional edits. You can always tell which view you're in by the margin color. When soft proofing is on, this color will mimic the paper white of the profile you're using. And if I turn soft proofing off for a moment, you'll see that the color in the margin is what I've set it to in the preferences as a middle gray. Returning to soft proofing, there is no file name on either of these panes to indicate the profile like there is in Lightroom and Photoshop. Check out the flowchart link below the video description to study all of this more closely. So making side-by-side edits in ON1 2018.1 is a rather clunky workaround. In this version, ON1 addresses only part of the soft-proofing process, namely gamut warnings. It's one thing to say you can make edits from visual memory, or just by knowing the paper you've chosen can't reproduce dark blacks like your monitor or another paper will. But to make more accurate WYSIWYG adjustments, you have to be able to compare the original and soft-proof images side by side, as you can in Lightroom and Photoshop. I consider this a shortcoming in ON1's current approach to soft-proofing. Coupled with the inability to create and save print layouts in ON1 Photo RAW, these are the main reasons I'll continue to soft-proof and print from within Lightroom, even though ON1 is now my favorite browser and editing platform. Hopefully ON1 will address both issues in a future release. The printing process is similar to Photoshop. Make sure, of course, that you're printing from your soft-proofed or virtual copy. When you first open the print dialog, there is a drop-down menu where you must select your printer up at the top, and then further down under color management you need to select the printer profile, and I'm going to change this from printer managed color to the canvas natural matte, and I'll change intent from perceptual to relative colorimetric. Next, you should go up and click on Print Setup, and then when that dialog opens, make sure that the correct printer is displayed, and then go over to the right and click on Properties. Here under Media Settings, again select the paper that you're going to be using, and under Mode you should select Off or No Color Adjustment. Click OK on these two dialogues, and then in the original Print Settings dialog, click Print to begin printing. So this finishes our run-through of soft-proofing in ON1 Photo RAW 2018.1. So there you have it, guys. Everything you need to know about soft-proofing in Lightroom, Photoshop, and ON1 Photo RAW. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please post your comments or suggestions for future topics. Check out our website at notchabovephoto.com and come visit us at one of our club's monthly meetings if you're near Bethlehem in the North Country of New Hampshire. I'm Tim Williams. Thanks for watching.